It is the legendary Mel Kiper Jr. on Wilde and Tausch. Mel, good morning. How are you?
I always knew Wisconsin offensive linemen are the way to go. That you never give a Wisconsin offensive lineman a low grade. Never.
Yeah, I'm sure you had him in like the third round back in your 2000
I wasn't
preview.
in his book, Jason. No, I was not in Mel's book. And you know what? I'm okay with that. That was a long time ago, Mel. But so, Mel, let's jump into it right away. I always like getting the Badger stuff out because we're going to talk Packers and what they're going to do. But what did you see so far? Because Tanner Bortolini, I think he was struggling to figure out if he should go. He had great numbers at the Combine, his RAS score. How do you see where he fits as far as in this draft process?
I'd say right now, he could go anywhere between the third, fourth round area. That would be the earliest for him. You wish the arm length was a little better, but the bottom line is the versatility he provides. As a guy, if you have an injury, he could possibly be a starter in the National Football League. We know that. But certainly early on, I think that versatility along the interior will help him. The program, just the way they develop linemen, the way they coach them, the way there's the success they've had in the NFL is going to help him. So there's no question. I think in terms of that group, we're going to probably see Jackson Powers Johnson. I think Graham Barton, who played left tackle at Duke, certainly is going to be a guard or a center. Played center early on at Duke. He doesn't have the arm length to be a tackle, so he will be an interior offensive lineman. Then Jackson Powers Johnson, Oregon. Zach Frazier, West Virginia. After that, guys, then you get into Bortolini. That's the next, that second tier of the interior linemen, the centers, is where you get into where he could come off the board, which I think is, like I said, late day 2, early day 3.
Okay. So, Mel, do you think any centers come off the board in the first round?
I do. I really do. I think when you look at Pittsburgh, you look at Miami, teams like that, Arizona, late in the first round, when you get around that 20 spot, 21, where Pittsburgh, Miami, like I say, late first round, where Arizona has another first-round draft choice, that's where you look at Graham Barton. That's where you look at Jackson Powers Johnson. I almost had him going to Arizona in mock 3.0. I made that change late, but you could put him in, pencil him in there as a possibility. I have Graham Barton going actually in the first round in that mock, and I've been consistent with that. I do think Graham Barton ends up in round 1. So I think you look at Zach Frazier from West Virginia, probably round 2. That's why I have Bortolini in that third round, fourth round discussion area. And I think after that, there's a lot of guards, and it could kick inside that have had some experience. But it seems like the depth of this draft, guys, is not tackle. The depth of this draft is the interior offensive lineman.
Okay. Going to the running back spot, you got Braylon Allen, a Badger. How do you see where he fits? And then also, one that I think the Packers could be interested in is Guerendo from Louisville, who is also a Badger. What did you see from those two?
Guerendo's got that straight line speed. He's north-south. You give him a crack, he's going. He's not going to have a lot of wiggle. He's not going to make people miss. But, if you have them in the right scheme, he could be certainly a guy. Allen, I haven't figured out. He's every position, there's a guy that you just can't figure out what type of pro he will be. You think, and a lot of these guys, hey, you'll be right on some, you'll be wrong on others. But at least you have an idea, right? You have a strong conviction on those guys. I don't have it. I haven't been able to figure out Braylon Allen. I really haven't. So, he's one of those guys I put him in, he'll probably go in the fourth round area, but I have not figured out what type of pro he will be. So that's the kind of guy you say, okay, if you can't figure him out, you don't draft him, let somebody else do it. There's guys like that at every position. Braylon Allen at running back is that guy for me. And just to go back to the point about tackles, tackles are loaded in first round and early second. My point about tackle is that when you try to get into the third, fourth round to find a starting offensive tackle, good luck. There's going to be a lot. I think 10 offensive tackles could go certainly in the first 2 rounds. After that, there's a big drop-off where the depth, I believe, is more so along the line in terms of center and offensive guard.
Mel, why is Braylon Allen so hard to figure out for you? What is it about him that makes him so difficult?
I like. There are some things I like. I mean, I just don't. Sometimes you project guys at running back. You say, okay, I can see them doing damage. I can see them in this type of blocking scheme, running well and doing things. I guess I have maybe too high early on. Then I moved him back a little bit. I've kind of been all over the place. I haven't gotten a real handle on him, and it's not that I know I can see the talent. I can see what he's able to do. I just haven't been able to define a rating. I guess that's the way, because when you're all over the place on ratings, you kind of throw, do I really know? It's almost like if you're not sure, you don't know. So when I see a rating fluctuate for me, and I look back when he was playing a couple of years ago, and I see, what I try to do when I evaluate a player in a game, and you don't look at every game. So when I'm doing it during the year, I'll put like a couple dashes. How many dashes? And they would vary. It'll be a dash. It would be 3 dash. It was all over the place, and it wasn't like that with a lot of the other backs. So when I said at every position, you have players like that. I'll give you a quarterback that's tough for me. It's J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. I'm all over the place on J.J. I haven't been able to figure J.J. McCarthy out. I said when Trey Lance came out, I couldn't figure Trey Lance out. I can't figure out J.J. McCarthy. Braylon Allen's one there. There are going to be players at every position that you really just don't have a good handle on. So that's not if anybody tells you they do, guys, they're lying, because there's always going to be players like that you just are you're high one day game, you're low another, and you just can't really feel comfortable, I guess is the word, with the final rating you give that particular player.
Well, this is the perfect segue, Mel, then, because how sure are you about Caleb Williams? Because obviously, he won't be a Green Bay Packer, but Packers fans have enjoyed 3 decades of we have something you don't have with Bears fans, and that is great quarterbacking. And now it looks like Jordan Love might follow in Favre and Rodgers' footsteps. Are the Bears going to get a can't-miss quarterback in Caleb Williams?
As long as he becomes the leader of that team, that he gets that locker room and he's not into all the commercials and all the things, and he's talking about, hey, I'm the legend. I don't want to hear about it, former Bears. I'm going to be. You're talking it. You got to back it up, right? So Caleb's got to back up all that talk, and he certainly has the talent to do it. I will say this: people were critical of him late in the year. His offensive line was awful. It was awful. And his receivers, he didn't have Addison. He had some good receivers, but not an elite guy like Addison was 2 years ago. And like I said, his offensive line was terrible. In the fourth quarter of games, he had 5 touchdowns, no picks this year in the fourth quarter for almost 600 yards. To the point about J.J., think about this, guys. In the fourth quarter this year, 24 of 34, 293 yards. 1 touchdown, no picks. That's it. 24 of 30. So he wasn't asked to do it. And the Penn State game, he didn't throw a pass in the second half. Jaden Daniels in the fourth quarter, 42 of 57 for 831 yards, 10 touchdowns, 2 picks. So, again, that's why J.J. for me is tough to evaluate. I think when you look at Caleb, he is going to go number 1. He is going to be expected to be a franchise generational quarterback. Will he be? Trevor Lawrence was expected to be that guy. He hadn't been generational yet, right? Bryce Young was expected to be great, even though he's 5'10", 190, but he didn't get any help at Carolina. He had a bad offensive line, no running game, and average receivers. So let's see what Bryce can do. Bryce is still to be determined. Caleb is going to be expected to be phenomenal in the National Football League and not be Patrick Mahomes, but be one of the top 3 to 5 best quarterbacks in this league. That's what people are going to define what he has to be as. Top 3 to 5 within the first 3 to 4 years of his career.
Good luck. Mel, I have been in on Chop. I watched film, Chop from Penn State. What do you see, and is he going to be available when Green Bay picks? And if not, who do you see as maybe some targets Green Bay is going to look at?
That's great. I just talked about it on a podcast. Field Yates and I do First Draft podcast on Thursday. I just finished talking about it. I said, that's the guy that I hated dropping into the late first because he tested so well. He plays hard. He didn't have the production, though, the sack production. He missed a little bit of time with an injury late. But I love Chop. I think he's going to go a little higher than I mocked him, and I think he could be off the board. But, hey, if people look at Owe is a Baltimore Raven. Odafe Owe didn't have a sack, but went in the first round. Hasn't produced with the Baltimore Ravens the results that they expected, yet. We'll see what happens moving forward. But same thing with Chop. You're going to expect him to put up 8 to 10 sacks a year. He didn't do it in college. Owe, 0 sacks his final year at Penn State. He's a first-round pick. Hasn't done it yet. So if you can't do it against, I call them AOGs, another occupation guys in college, what are you going to do in the National Football League? That's why I have Chop Robinson going where I do in the mock.
Who else do you like at 25 then for them, Mel?
Well, I think is Latu going to be around because he had the neck injury. Remember, he medically retired, came back, and had a really good year. He's slippery off the edge. There's going to be somebody falls. It always happens that way. Somebody you don't expect, you project. That's why I kind of didn't feel as bad with Chop and even Latu dropping. Now, Cooper DeJean. Is Cooper DeJean going to be around in the late first round when I thought he was one of the best 15 players when he was healthy? Got hurt. He's going to have a workout in around the 15th of April. Hasn't been able to do much yet. He did bench press the other day. But Cooper DeJean is a heck of a football player. He can play corner, and you talk about versatility. He can play corner in whatever defensive structure you have, and he can kick inside the safety. And if you want to look at him as a safety, he's the best safety in this draft. He's probably, in my opinion, he's the second or third best corner in this draft and the best safety. So to me, Cooper DeJean, if he's available in the late first round, would be a heck of a pick.
All right, Mel, we know you've got another gig with the big ESPN, but you always make time for us. We may have to call you closer to the draft and beg for more time because we have so many more questions. Would you consider that just for Tausch and kind of making up for the fact that you left him out of the 2000 book?
Well, Tausch has had a high grade for me since he's a better broadcaster than he was football player.
Oh, boy.
That is a walk-off line if I've ever heard one.
Oh, snap.
This is one of my favorite deals with talking to Tausch. I mean, this guy knows everything about every sport. He's been phenomenal, which we didn't know when he played. He had this knowledge of everything. So I would say better broadcaster than football player, which is high praise.
Go.
Good. We'll circle back to that closer to the draft. Thanks, Mel.
Anytime, guys. Have a great weekend, man.
That is the great Mel Kiper. It is always fun to spend some time with him. He is so rapid fire with all the information. Like, if you were transcribing that interview, it would be 30 minutes of words in 15 minutes.
He loves Chop. He loves Chop, too.
He doesn't love him quite as much as he loves you as a broadcaster, which is a lot more than he loved you as a player, from what I can gather from that exchange.
Yeah, he was, again, didn't even make the book, which, maybe he was right.
You seem to have done okay for yourself since then. Hey, tell us about Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin again, would you?
Well, if you've been waiting to replace those broken windows or doors, or you just want to revitalize your home with a new look, now is the time to get it done. Because from now until March 31st, you get 0% interest for up to 3 years at Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. That's right. Pella now and pay it up later. 3 years later, in fact, order by March 31st. Get 0% interest for up to 3 years. Set your free consultation today at PellaWI.com. Certain restrictions do apply.
We will talk a little bit about what Mel talked about. There are a couple things that jumped out from our conversation with him. But it sounds to me, and I don't want to put words in Mel's mouth, that it could go a lot of different directions at 25. And it makes me wonder if Goody might do something really interesting on day one or night one of the draft. I'll ask Tausch if he thinks I'm right or he thinks I'm crazy. We'll do that next. It's Wilde and Tausch.